Teacher Talk session tonight. Tonight we are going to have another educator from different part of the world, and tonight we have our 170th session, which is a really great number for me and for you, of course. And our guest is a language and communication coach for ESL Healthcare Professionals, Shweta Ramkumar. When I think she's here. Yes, she's here. When she comes, we're gonna start our live session with her. Let me accept her. Start a live session with her.
Hello.
Oh, hello?
Can you hear me?
Of course, it's really clear. Can hear you.
Oh,
Just a moment.
yes, I can hear you. For some reason,
You
it's
can
not
hear
going
me?
through my earphones, but I can hear you nice and clearly. Hi, welcome.
Okay, wonderful. It's really great to see you here. And Shweta, and how can I pronounce your name?
It's Shweta. Shweta.
Shweta. Okay,
Yes.
Shweta. It's great to
Yes.
hear. And before
Lovely to see
starting
you.
our live sessions, I would like to say thank you very much for accepting my invitation for Teacher Talks and being with us here tonight. And I think it's over there. It's really early in the morning,
Yes.
if I'm
4.
not wrong, 4 a.m. And that's really a great behavior and for us from you. Thank you very much. I don't know what to say about it, and I'm really happy that you said no. You didn't say no to us and join our live session. Thank you
Yeah, I
very much.
wouldn't say no to any of these, no matter how inconvenient it may be. So thank you very much for having me on. It's a real privilege.
It's a great honor, Shweta. Okay, so I don't want to take your time, and it's really early there, so maybe we can start if you're ready, can we?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I know about you, but maybe our audiences would like to know about you. So can you tell us about yourself, please, and a bit about your experiences too?
So I've been an educator and teacher most of my life, officially or otherwise. So I started when I was the age of 19, tutoring university students in science, biology, those kind of subjects. That was like really my strengths. And then went off and did that formally as a science teacher and biology teacher, taught that for half a decade. I wanted to travel the world more and explore other cultures and get to know, connect with the locals of different countries a little bit better. And I felt like language is the best way to actually do that. And that's how I got my TEFL certification. Then I started teaching ESL in Thailand, did a bit of a stint in
Wow.
Vietnam, then taught it online. And up until now, it's been almost 8 years since I've been doing this. And only last year, I niched out into helping specifically healthcare providers from English as a second language backgrounds, not just in language, but the broader aspect of communication, to help them connect better with their patients and just to achieve excellence in the workplace. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Thank you very much, Shweta. Shweta. And so what I'm going to ask you that, what was or were your turning point or points in your own education?
I think for me, when I was a very young child, I think I was innately born to be an educator in many ways. I remember as a child, I used to teach my extended family other languages, so words in other languages, and I used to have like little sessions at home when I'd be having like a whiteboard. Back in the day, we had whiteboards and blackboards, writing them and asking them questions and just making the whole thing pretty. And I was a very young child, and I eventually went on to do that when I was coaching table tennis to my friends. I was not officially a coach, but I kind of knew how to do that. And I knew that when they were playing better than me, that I've done something right. So which is what eventually happened. And that was a pretty big turning point for me. I'm like, yeah, I can do this for a living. And the other big milestone really for me was I was always naturally good at science, and what I particularly enjoyed was when I used to tutor students. I loved the one-on-one or a small group dynamic, which is a little hard to find in a classroom when you have like 20 to 30 people. So you sort of really get to know the student really well. They sort of open up to you and become more vulnerable with you. And I think I've formed most of my success stories, and the best relationships that I've had with students actually come from those sessions. Now, another big pivotal turning point for me was when I was teaching in the UK. So this was when I was in England and I was teaching science, biology, and all that. I got very obsessed with traveling, to the rest of the world. And that's when I realized if I start teaching a language, it's a good way for me for passing on not only my knowledge, but also a skill that will be beneficial for them. And that way I can learn about their culture and everything. So, yeah, these are some of the little milestones that sort of accumulated together to make it where I
I
am
got
today.
it. I got it. Thank you very much for sharing, Shweta, with us. Thank you. All right. So, you've been teaching for a long time, and probably during this teaching career, you have tried different methodologies, different techniques, and strategies in your lessons, and probably you have a philosophy of teaching. And what is it? What is your philosophy of teaching?
In very simple terms, you have to, I know it's much harder to do this in a big group setting. I would say it's very important to make it personalized and relatable to your students, or even like when you're on social media, when you make content, it's not about you, it's about what is going to benefit your audience. It's the same similar principle when it comes to teaching. So yes, a lot of teaching can be quite abstract and theoretical, but we as educators have to really, through our craft and through our differentiation and how we do it, is make it as applicable to real world as much as possible. And particularly with languages, it's a lot easier to do that. Much more challenging with science, but with languages, because you are applying it on an everyday basis. And I think now, with mainstream like pop culture and all that, you get exposure to different languages in songs. Like I remember very recently there is a German rap song which has completely gone viral on Instagram and TikTok, and now there's an English translation of that song as well. So yeah, and even though that particular, if you just heard that song by in and of itself by isolation, it would just go over your head. But then once you see the English translation, I'm like, oh, this is like, something that happens in everyday life. So that's really the key, that you make it personable, personalized to your students, and also make it as concrete and relatable with real world connections.
I got it.
That's always been my principle and motto for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shweta. And what I'm gonna ask, we are educators, Shweta, and we have a lot of stories in our career. Some bad stories, some good stories, some success and some failed stories. Can you tell us one or maybe two success stories of yours, something inspirational? But if you want to talk about your failed stories or moments, you can also talk about it. It's your choice.
Well, I'll do one of each and see how we go. So a few years ago, just to balance it out. So a few years ago, I was teaching these two 12 to 14-year-old Chinese students. They were boys. And I remember them, and this is actually on my personal YouTube channel, that I do have a video of this particular lesson. And I was teaching them the concept of cause and effect. So what causes, what an effect is, and how you apply that in a sentence, and how you put those sentences together. Now, the boys, these two students were like chalk and cheese, and one used to be who would participate, who would be the first one to say, who would actually cut the other student off, and the other one, as a result, he was inherently very shy, the other kid, and it didn't help that this one would just keep on dominating the conversation per se. And so whilst both of them had understood the concept very clearly, because of this other student, because he was constantly cutting him off, it undermined the shy one a little bit. So what I did at that point was, instead of really telling him off, I said, why don't you explain to your peer what your understanding of what this is, and give an example. So that took the pressure off of me, because I didn't have to do that. But the shy could actually hear it from the other one, and he got the sense that, oh, this kid is not really doing this to be mean towards me. He actually wants the best for me, but he just can't help himself in terms of making an impression with me. But yeah, so that was a pivotal moment where I fostered that sense of teamwork in a small group setting, and it's going to be beneficial for them in years to come. I would say, in terms of one thing that I have found really challenging in the past is Working with Japanese students, I have to say,
Oh,
Asian students overall, but particularly Japanese students have been a big challenge for me. I guess because just to again, and I have traveled to Japan. I went there last year, and I can see why much clearly now. Because I think Japanese people are very, unlike me. I'm very much, I'll say what's on my mind. I'm very direct, and I'll just tell it like it is. With them, you have to be very careful, and not just what you say, but how you say it. And you can't just be direct with them. You have to sort of, it's called explicit communication, or one or the other, implicit or explicit communication. So you have to sort of drop different hints around it. You have to just beat around the bush and then get to the point, and you have to say it very politely. So it was challenging, but still I had a good time with Japanese students, but it took me a while to really gauge their communication style and understand their culture to really get there.
I got it. Thank you very much, Shweta, for sharing with us. And you have really different, the stories and experiences with different countries. It's really interesting that you have these different experiences, and probably it gives you a lot of different ideas and different experiences when you see that kind of students from different countries. It's really great thing to have it. Really wonderful. And thank you sharing again with us here. Okay, and as a language teacher, we need to have some qualities and skills, okay, to become successful as a language teacher. So you are a kind of a coach and mentor and trainer. So when you think about it, what are the most important qualities and skills an English language teacher should possess, or generally teachers should possess?
I always say to everybody that teachers do this. There are some professions in the world that you get into not for the accolades or the anything, or the money. It's just really to feel rewarded. And teaching is, you get called to do this, and it's one of the things that you can't help yourself but do. And I think that's really what's important. You have to connect with why you're actually doing this, because you have to have that drive to really see your students achieve, and that's the most rewarding aspect of it, to see your students progress and achieve and move on to the next stage of their life. So it takes a lot of commitment, and I don't want to use the word passion, but just, I would say commitment is a big thing, because there's a lot of times when in teaching where you have to do things that you don't want to do, but you have to push through it because you have a commitment to these students who really depend on you for guidance, knowledge, and support. And a lot of people say that, oh, you have to have you have to be very smart, and to an extent I agree. You have to have you have to know what you're doing and what you're talking about. But really, I think a big quality is also to be adaptable and flexible, because no two people in the classroom or in a group setting are going to be the same. And be also personable and relatable, because people have to see you as a human more than the teacher, more than anything. And also, it's not going to impact your professionalism anyway if you show your flaws, like I just did. I talked about how I struggled with Japanese students. And also patience is a big one. I think everyone who's trying to get into teaching has to be incredibly patient and realize that it is going to, some students, they will achieve in their own ways, in their own methodologies, and at their own pace, and also to differentiate for every single student in the way that, so really how it's going to best resonate with them. And a big one that I have learned, that the more I do coaching and I'm branching into that, is resilience, because you're going to have a lot of setbacks. You're going to have a lot of bad days. You may be responsible for it, or your students may be, and at the end of the day, you have to know how to bounce back from that and not let that sort of affect you. Yeah,
definitely. That important points you mentioned. Thank you very much, Shweta. So you are a communication coach for ESL Healthcare Professionals. So what made you niche or specialize into this?
Okay, so going back to, again, just back in time in childhood. So my mum is actually a doctor, and I saw her work very closely with patients as a child, and I could see that how she had that art, that she was very naturally good at it, especially patients who were back in India, where I'm from, who were not very economically well-to-do, and she showed them so much empathy and compassion, and those guys used to literally worship her. So I just felt like my mom was like this big magician. She did something really amazing. And the more I realized that when I was teaching biology, science, and with ESL, and I also worked in healthcare briefly, and I just thought, okay, how can I merge all these things that I'm not only passionate about and good at, but the world really needs, to sort of develop more in, because I have had a lot of as a patient in the healthcare system myself. I've had a variety of experiences, some good ones and some not so good ones. But this is the underlying theme that I experienced as a patient myself, and also when I was working in healthcare.
Oh,
All of
I
the
see.
underlying thing was that my healthcare provider does not understand me. My healthcare provider does not listen to me. They're not able to empathize with me for whatever reason. And I felt a lot of healthcare providers who are from ESL backgrounds, they think, and I still have this problem till date, they think, oh, I can speak English fluently, so I'm absolutely fine. And I have to constantly mention in my content that that's not going to make you a good communicator. That's not going to make your patients trust you. And you're not going to necessarily be professionally successful in doing that. So that's why my coaching is about 30% of fluency and 70% of all the more subtle soft skills that sort of get swept under the rug when you're in during patient consultations. And my role really is to emphasize that and bring that to the forefront and lift the lid and really talk about how it's going to impact patients and healthcare providers in the future.
Wow.
Like this week, I talk about how remote work and also online and telehealth consultations, how they are going to become the norm, and how as healthcare providers we can get better at that. So these are some of the things, one of the many things that I really talk about. And I ran the idea past about 2 or 3 of my friends who are in the healthcare space, and they all sort of validated, and they all said that this is the world really needs this. So that's how
see.
it all sort of got started. Yeah.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So, what are, as a communication coach, what are the most common communication challenges, an ESL healthcare professionals face when interacting with patients and colleagues?
Okay. So the very first challenge that I mentioned is that they just assume that because they have done, a CELTA certification or some sort of a language certification,
Oh,
and
I
they've
see.
achieved this sort of grade, that they're good to go. And there's an exam called OET, so they get a good mark in that. They think that's by getting a good mark in that, they're good to go. And what happens is when they go into starting to work with these patients, they realize that, every patient is so different. So you have or not just different ages, but different ethnicities, different cultural backgrounds, and certain genders are different. And not only that, every patient's condition is different. The way in which they want to be treated is different. So they get it really throws them off when that happens. And this is particularly evident when, say, someone has moved to an English-speaking country from a country where English is not the first language. And then they go into these settings, and this is quite common in Australia, where I see a lot of people in aged care. So aged care is big in Australia now, so they're getting people from all over the world to work in aged care. And there, it's not just a cultural gap, but also a generational gap. So these elderly patients, they might be throwing in a few slangs that this poor person who's not been in Australia for that long, doesn't know English very well, and now has to talk in slang with Australians. It's very hard for them. And also this thing of, because it's a healthcare itself is a very demanding, intense job, they are not able to necessarily spend that much quality time with patients and show them empathy and show them compassion in a much more personalized way, not just for the heck of doing it, but because they actually generally feel it. And because, as I said, these skills, sometimes they just get swept under the rug. And people say that, well, we don't have to ever know about it. And the other issue is that there's no way of actually knowing quantifiably as a healthcare provider how well or otherwise you're doing. Yes, you have patient feedback and all that, but then, in the midst of admin work and all that, that sort of gets lost. So you're kind of finding yourself going on this hamster wheel, doing the same thing over and over, and you don't really know, oh, how well am I doing or otherwise. So yeah, those are all the little gaps that I felt. And also a big one is the cultural gap, which I've already talked about, and all the communication gap. Yeah.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much for your answer, Shweta. And as a trainer or coach, have you ever met a teacher or a student who creates really difficult times during your sessions?
because I've taught so many students in the past, this is going to be a tough one. I would say that I personally have found it challenging in certain classrooms where you obviously have a lot of students, but also because there's a limitation on how much of the language they understand. And when you're sort of giving them instructions and you simplify them it as much as possible, and they still don't get it. Sometimes that can be a little bit of challenge. And also, I guess also, what can I say? Like I mentioned in the example that I just gave you with the two Chinese kids,
Yes.
that's very common. If you have a group session, you have very different dynamics in the group. So you have one or few people who are going to be very, enthusiastic. That's putting it nicely, and they will just dominate the conversation, and just the other ones will just sort of. And they do this very unconsciously. They don't realize it. And that's why in my group sessions in the past, I have always made sure that every single person has a turn, and I would split them into small groups, and like we have little like Zoom, those individual meeting rooms, and then they can sort of then come together and we facilitate. So it takes on the role more of a facilitator. So this is tricky in group settings when you have, not only do you communicate in different ways, but you also interact with each other in different ways. So navigating through that is something that I had to learn, but I got there eventually.
I see. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really hard times and to face them and to handle them. Your job is really not easy to do it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. And what I'm going to ask, your coaching is not, the easy to do it. Okay. So it really, but there are some points, really important points to do it. What are the key pillars of your coaching?
Okay. So the number one element really of my coaching is, if you look at my coaching program, it's self-awareness. And a lot of people might think, oh, what has self-awareness got to do with communication? It's everything, because self-awareness really makes you accountable for what happened in your past, in your childhood, how you were raised, what you were exposed to, how you were influenced, and how that has impacted your communication. I also look into things like your beliefs that you have been sort of indoctrinated since childhood, and what you have believed up until now, and about patients and healthcare in general, and how they impact your communication. So self-awareness is a big one, because that only then, by knowing where you lie in the spectrum, can you set realistic goals and plan on actually achieving them. So that's a big one. Another one is obviously the core communication skills of active listening, empathy, and also a big one that I emphasize is I sort of put a new spin on the word professionalism. So in healthcare, traditionally, professional is a person who has a ton of accolades under their name, has a ton of qualifications, is dressed up in a nice fancy suit, and also knows how to say the right things and tick a bunch of boxes. But what I really emphasize is that for my clients to be human as well as professional, and I give them examples of healthcare professionals who've actually done that. And a big one also is I train them in understanding what patient advocacy and autonomy is, and really work with them collaboratively as a team member. So yeah, those are just some of the many pillars that I really sort of talk about. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Shweta. And my next question is, what strategies can be used to ensure clear and compassionate communication with patients who may also have limited English proficiency? You little bit talk about it, and maybe you can make it the detailed now.
Yeah. So obviously, and sometimes when I was in healthcare, this happened a lot of the time. I guess what really matters is that you have to emphasize your para and non-verbal communication skills, and I had to really do this when you don't have the advantage of an in-person, that proximity that you don't have. So working on things like how you pitch your voice, how your tonality is, how quickly or slowly you speak. And also important to give the patient space to really absorb and digest what you're saying instead of jumping into the next question. because you need to be able to do that for them to be comfortable, really. Be open to them giving you feedback and answering their questions, and having to repeat yourself over and over again. That's you have to do that. And also, I guess also listening actively. And a big one that I really advocate for is asking deep, open-ended questions. Now, you don't
see. That's
now,
important.
now doing this immediately will scare people. So what I say is that start off with gentle, easy questions like how have you been feeling, and since we last saw each other, what has been happening with you, and things like that. My therapist does a very good job of this, I have to say. So I've learned a lot from her, and I mentioned her a lot of times in my posts. And also I think with them, checking in with them, if you have a long consultation, this helps, you can do that, how they're feeling at every given point in time, and getting clarification and paraphrasing information that they have given to you. And that way, they feel like, okay, this person actually gets it. This person knows how I'm feeling. So actually really putting yourself in their shoes at the end of the day, what it comes down to. Yeah.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Shweta. And sometimes we have these situations, but we don't know how to deal with them. But that's why you are there to help us to tell us this kind of the problems. How can we solve it? How can we motivate them? How can we handle it? Something like this. Thank you. And what I'm going to ask you, what techniques do you recommend for boosting confidence in speaking and communicating in the high pressure environments, the like schools or maybe hospitals or maybe offices or maybe other places, you name it.
Yeah. I think one of the big things that again, I have a framework for this in my coaching, is that you have to obviously be positive and encouraging, and celebrate the small progress and wins that your clients and students are making. But I think it's also equally important to hold your students and your clients accountable. Accountability is really
Oh, I
big for
see.
me. So when you are giving them feedback, you're not only being kind and compassionate, but at the same time, you have to be honest and constructive. That's not to say that you go and nitpick and criticize everything that you say, because that will completely throw them off. It's important that you emphasize to them, this is where I felt you could have done better, or you were not able to achieve this as the way that you desired because of X, Y, and Z. And when I say accountable, it's about making them reflect on where they have what they have not done, or in the execution or planning stages, in order for them to achieve what they are. So really, it puts the onus and responsibility back on them and makes them more reflective and self-aware. So it's all, if you see here, it's all sort of feeding off each other and benefiting each other. And in terms of encouraging them, I think when you set up activities for your students, and this is a big one in my coaching program, a lot of my activities, I actually get them to apply them in real time with their colleagues, with their patients. And having that exposure and practice in the real world will really boost their confidence, or otherwise. And one thing I always encourage my clients to do, and some of them are already doing it, is use social media. And I'm not saying social media like Instagram. It could be anything. If they like to write, they should sort of start posting on LinkedIn. That's my number one thing. Post it, because LinkedIn is amazing for that, for any written content. Or they can have like a Substack, or now in Substack you have different languages as well. I didn't know that. So medium.com. So if you like to write, so becoming creative is a very good way of actually not only raising more self-awareness, but how to express yourself from an authentic place. And also it's important to make them realize that there's no one way of correctly expressing yourself. Like I said, if you're comfortable with going and doing a dance on TikTok, by all means do it, but don't set that as a precedence that everyone has to do it. So and don't feel like just because I'm not able to do that means something is wrong with me. So and I really emphasize on becoming creative and just embracing imperfections and mistakes. This is a big problem I had with all of my Asian students. So they would really hesitate to participate because they're like, oh, I'm going to get this wrong and I'm going to lose my face. And breaking down those barriers and those limiting beliefs takes time, and you have to be extra encouraging and extra positive with them in those instances. Yeah.
Well, you need to be also patient about it.
Oh,
If I'm
totally,
not wrong.
100%. Yeah,
Totally.
that goes without saying. Yeah.
I got it. There are we sometimes we face really critical situations, and in these
Mhm.
critical situations, we understand the students or the people wrongly sometimes. The How should ESL healthcare professionals handle situations where a miscommunication has occurred, especially in critical situations?
This is a big one, and I think when was this? I think it was last week. My last week's video. This is what I emphasized when you have misunderstandings with your patients. It's more often than not usually either one of two reasons. Either you have a factual misunderstanding, or it's just a difference of how you have perceived it differently. And I know in critical situations when you have patients who are coming to you, and ER is a big one. Like when you go to the emergency room, I always tell people
Uh-huh.
people don't voluntarily choose to go into emergency with a happy smile on their face. That's a critical. That's like critical situation on steroids. So at that point, it's important that you not only show your patients that you're going to be with them, and you show
Uh-huh.
that commitment that you are going to address their challenge and issue, but also important that you have your boundaries as well, that so that people don't sort of walk all over you or take advantage of you. And so setting that standards for patients, saying that I need you to wait here, I need you to not be, for example, if they're being aggressive, not be aggressive and treat everyone nicely. And I think getting clarification on what somebody is saying, and sometimes in situations when you have distress or patients are particularly vulnerable, it's important to let them express themselves and let everything out of their system and just don't say anything. And when you are giving them a response, just make sure that it's not combative, or you defending yourself or anything like that. Now, this obviously is a case by case scenario, so I'm just giving as a one off. And if you can really see that somebody is genuinely stressed or anxious or distressed, yeah, just give them that space really to vent per se, and show that commitment that you will get to the heart of this, and give them options and give them solutions and ask them how they feel about different things.
I see.
So yeah, so that's just yeah,
Mm-hmm.
another one that I can think of. Yeah.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Shweta. Really, so far you have mentioned a lot of important point about this coaching thing. Really, thank you. And
Mhm.
by the way, you have mentioned your YouTube channel. Can you name
Mhm.
it, please, here? What is the
It's
name of it?
Healthy Dynamics. If you go to my Instagram bio,
Mm-hmm.
it will be there. It's got my LinkedIn, it's got my TikTok, it's got my YouTube channel.
Oh, I see.
But again, if you want me to leave it, yeah, I'm really serious about optimizing my YouTube channel, and I've got my VAs actually doing it, and I post videos
Mm-hmm.
there every week. So
Wonderful.
and once a month, I interview someone from an expert in the healthcare field. So this month, I'm actually interviewing her tomorrow, but the video comes out next week. So she's a what is she? She's a therapist for people who have chronic health conditions like fibromyalgia,
Oh,
MS, and all that.
very
So
interesting.
so
Mm-hmm.
so she's been doing this for like almost 7 to 8 years.
I
So
got it.
and yeah, so similar to, and last month I had my mom. So I have once a month I have someone from healthcare. So there's a lot of resources. Even though majority of my presence is on LinkedIn, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
much more serious about optimizing my YouTube channel. So feel free to go and check videos out there. I do them once a
I
week. So yeah.
see. Wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing them, Shweta. So, we are in every job, the
Hmm.
people needs to find to motivate themselves to go to work, to go
Hmm.
to or to do their job like a teachers we
Hmm.
do. We need to find a motivation, okay? We need to motivate ourselves, okay, to do the job because being a teacher is not an easy thing to do, as you know.
Yes, of course.
So
Yeah.
and my question is about you. What is your biggest motivation to do coaching and your job right now?
It's definitely to I guess see the transformation in
Uh-huh.
clients and see their progress really from how they started off to where they're getting. And knowing that something that I'm doing something right, if they're able to do the progress, and like I gave that example in the very beginning of when I coached my peers on table tennis, it got to the point where they started playing better than me, and I took full credit for it. It was like, I've done something right because I've taught them this. So if my students are able to surpass me and beat me at communicators, that's the greatest reward. I don't see it as a threat. I think that I take pride in that I've done something right. So seeing them transform and develop and become better versions of themselves.
I see. Oh, great. And what are you doing right now for your work? Are you doing any projects, or do you have any plans to do it as a project about your job?
So at the moment, with this ESL coaching, I am now also doing LinkedIn Lives, and I'm planning on like I did one last week actually. I did one, and it's usually with other like ESL teachers for healthcare professionals. But I can do it also with other one. So that's one thing that I'm experimenting with at the moment with LinkedIn Lives, because that's where my really strong presence is. And I guess also like in this coaching space, what else can I add? How else can I tweak and revamp my coaching program? What else I need to include? So just structuring all of that, that's really what I am kind of working on, and building a strong presence and voice on LinkedIn and also on YouTube. Definitely, that's the plan.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Shweta. And time flies, and after maybe we sometimes we know what to do after 10 years, or sometimes we don't know what's gonna happen after 10 years. How do you see yourself in 10 years? Will you still be doing this job, or will you try another job or jobs?
It will definitely be in the coaching space, that's for sure. But whether I'll continue to coach, because at this stage I'm only working with not only but predominantly working with healthcare providers who are quite early in their career. So like people who are 2 or 3 years into their profession. But in 10 years time, if I'm still working with healthcare professionals, it could be someone who's at a directorial level, someone who's doing administrative work, or probably going and working individually within healthcare settings to foster better teamwork, to have to restructure their businesses and things like that. So I see myself doing that, and also I suppose writing books. Definitely, a podcast is on the horizon at some point, but I just haven't sort of given much of a thought to that. I think I have enough on my plate. But definitely a podcast is also on the horizon. If not this year, in a couple of years' time, for sure.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Shweta. And sometimes we face difficult situations, and at that moment we say, "Oh, I wish I could have I could have a kind of a superpower, so I could easily solve this problem or handle this problem." When you think about it for the classrooms, or when you relate this question with your coaching, if you could have one superpower to use it in the classroom or with your patient, what would it be, and how would it help you?
I would 100% vouch for resilience. Resilience is what has got me through a lot of my difficult times in life, and especially when you're working with healthcare. In healthcare, resilience is really going to be your best friend, because if you're working directly with patients, it can be very, very emotionally burdensome and draining, because you're taking on people's problems and you're dealing with really sick people all the time, and that can really affect you emotionally. So it is important that you know how to even if you've had setbacks and challenges and failures along the way, how you what you learn from it, and how what you would do differently. And that's how you sort of pick yourself up and become more resilient. And obviously the same applies for when you have if you're doing any sort of teaching, because again, teaching is very, very challenging. And when you have a lot of students who are very diverse, not all of your sessions are going, or all of your days are going to be bright and rosy for everybody. But you have to remember that tomorrow is a new day, and it's a fresh
Exactly.
start, and and bring it all back.
Okay, thank Thank you very much, Shweta. Think that we finish our interview and you step outside your office or home and find a lottery ticket that ends up winning $100 million. What would you do? Please be honest.
Okay. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Definitely, I would invest more into my coaching or into this business or the coaching business. Definitely, a majority of it would also go into some sort of investment that will bring me a good return financially. I definitely want. I'm someone who absolutely loves animals, so I would like to
Really nice.
donate not only financially but also my time. And in my will, it's written that in my because I don't have any. That's why my Instagram handle is called Child Free, because I don't want children. And my any money that I'm remaining I have will go to an animal rescue. So I would love to be able to do that, and also travel more. Yeah, that's what I would
Wonderful.
100%
Thank you
do.
very
Yeah.
much. And there is a question, Shweta. Can I
Yeah. So
have the Instagram
yeah,
account
yeah.
or YouTube?
So
Yeah, she
yeah.
can
So
tell it.
this
Can you tell your
I'll just
Instagram account or type
yes,
it?
yeah, 100%. But I have to say, I don't really post the ESL stuff on this account. This is really for my own, like as a child-free woman, I talk about all of that. But yeah, what I can do is send.
Hello?
Oh, hello, I'm here.
Okay.
So
Now
and
you're back.
I'm just posting the YouTube channel link. So
Oh,
it's right here.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you're back. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, the time flies, Shweta, and now I'm gonna
Yes.
ask you my last
Go
question,
on.
and which is the difficult one. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, go on. Of
Okay.
course. Go
All
ahead.
right. What is your motto?
As in terms of what?
What is your motto as a general? But
Oh,
for the life, maybe
well,
for
take
coaching.
yeah, take each day as it comes. I think that's what it is. Don't bring up, don't let your regrets and mistakes from your past, hold you back from achieving a better future. Yeah.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's all my questions, Sarita. That was really great. And before ending our live sessions, would you like to add anything else, or would you like to say anything else to our audiences?
Yeah, and yeah, I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this. And if people want to connect with me, as I said, I've got my YouTube channel over here, and obviously, if you go there, you can find my LinkedIn and everything. But if you go directly to my Insta bio as well, you can find my LinkedIn and YouTube, and that's where I mainly am. And yeah, we can connect, and we can know a little bit more about what I do, and I'd love to get to know your audience on a better basis as well. And people can add me, follow me, and subscribe to my channel, whatever works
Okay,
best for them.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarita. And I would like to say thank you very much for your suggestions, for your advice, and for
Mm-hmm.
all your the things that you said here. That was really wonderful, and especially and I'm really happy, for you to being with us here at that time. Australia, it's really, really early in the morning.
Early in the morning,
I'm
yeah.
really happy. Thank you very much for your, for your time. That's really wonderful.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's been
so
amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah.
you're welcome. And Shweta Ramkumar was with us tonight with the Teacher Talks with the 170th session. And we had a fruitful session with her, and we talked about a lot of different things about communication coaching, ESL Healthcare Professionals. That was a really wonderful session. You should definitely watch it. And as you know, that we are going to be here next week at the same time on the same day, every Monday at 9 p.m. for Turkish time. Okay, so until the next time, wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And until the next time, please take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, Shivita. And
You
bye
too.
bye, everybody,
See
and
ya.
peace.